Okay, gentlemen, we are here at Fantastic Fest, Horror Happens Radio, running across town from one junket to the next. It's always a challenge, to say the least. We'll go right to left. Peter Phok, honor to meet you, man.
Nice to meet you.
Tremendous on producing when it comes to Glass Eye Picks. You certainly have an eye, and collaborating with Larry and everyone with their, you see some amazing storytelling. So thank you for taking the time. Evan Gamble, you, my friend, as I said before, you look much better than you do in Deadwax, to say the least. So I appreciate the time coming here to Fantastic Fest. And Graham, several conversations. It's an honor. The beard makes you look like John Landis a lot with those glasses, but you pulled off well, my friend. So, guys, I was one of the few this morning who had a chance to see Deadwax before it's going to play here at Fantastic Fest. Everyone knows who listens to the show how much I love Tales from Beyond the Pale. Love it, especially the Chambers tape, which is my favorite of all the episodes, and it's amazing. So when you deal with something like this really is a visual representation of what I would think that Tales from Beyond the Pale would be, and not just the Chambers tape, but you deal with several different episodes. The Echo at Cedar Lake, the idea of the grandfather, stuff like that. So with that being said, first, what is it like to have it on Shudder and to be here at Fantastic Fest? Graham will go first to you and go left to right.
Well, it's an honor. It's great. I mean, we've been working on this project nonstop for 8 months to 2 years.
Wow.
We're basically finished. We're finishing. So everybody here at Fantastic Fest is getting a sneak peek of the final product, and it's really exciting to finally get to share it with an audience before it airs. And yeah, I think this is the right crowd for it. I think people here are into this kind of stuff, vinyl and horror. It's our lifeblood.
Yeah, and there's projects that have very interesting sound designs, but nothing like we see with what Deadwax is. And of course, that's your forte, among other things. Evan, what about having it play here at Fantastic Fest?
Well, this is my first time at Fantastic Fest. I went to school in Austin, so I used to live here. It's really cool to come back here. I grew up on horror movies, and I'm a huge, music fan. And so to be in a project like this that combines the two, is really exciting. And I'm proud to be a part of the project.
Peter?
Surprisingly, it's my first Fantastic Fest as well. I've seen a lot of movies here, but it's the first series, and I'm so excited to be here with Graham and Evan, and just to share it. We've worked so hard on this, and to share it in its entirety. So I really feel like it's the world premiere of this audience tonight. It's in for a real treat, and just excited to get responses to it. We've never played it with an audience yet.
And it's interesting because this is a TV series on Shudder, the first season of it. And recently I had the chance to see La Quinceañera, Stage 13. And it was the same format as what we're going to see with Deadwax tonight at the midnight screening, where you have the different episodes and you have them sectioned off and you have them in parts. And by the way, part 4 is fucking amazing. Love part 4. It is amazing. But I digress for a second. It's an interesting way to debut a TV series, especially in the genre. I know with Gigi Salguero, they wanted to do this. They wanted to put all the parts together to make it into a 70-minute feature. Was that the original thinking when you wanted to do film festivals, Peter, is to have this put together for an hour and a half, if not more, to show everything together instead of separate?
Well, it was something we always knew, that Graham and I always spoke about, that the entire running time would be equal to that of a feature film. So we always felt like, at a festival, we would love to screen the whole thing. It was really Shudder's initiative to kind of send it out to Fantastic Fest, and then for the festival to enjoy it and invite us to screen. It's just an honor. It's just something that we didn't really anticipate, as we were just kind of working towards finishing for our release this fall.
Yeah, likewise. My background is in features, and but I've done some longer form and slightly episodic type things like the work in video games. So I had always thought of this as like a feature, but you couldn't do something like episode 4 in a feature.
Right.
You couldn't just spend 20 minutes on a different story in a feature. You can do that in a show because it's like a bottle episode. So even when you do put it together, it resembles a feature, but it's still its own unique thing that you get permission to do because it has these chapters. And we wouldn't be able to set up the kind of cliffhangers that we do every 15, 20 minutes in a feature the same way. So it was an interesting new challenge for me, and I've always been a huge TV fan as well. Twin Peaks is probably the reason I'm a filmmaker, which is interesting since it's a TV show and not a movie. But that got me into movies.
Right.
So I've always wanted to work in the the serialized episodic format. So kind of taking these baby steps towards a longer form version of that was both a challenge and really gratifying, because I got to work with something that was kind of familiar, like the 2-hour format, but also new to me, which is the episodic, breaking, like having cold opens and act breaks and then cliffhangers. Was a really interesting, good, structured way for me to learn it, in a tiny format.
and that's the great thing about Shudder, for example. Now, it's like FearNet, where it gave that platform where you're not dealing with, in most cases, the huge budgets. You've got your restrictions, but you also have your freedom to be able to do things because it's within the genre. Now, Evan, you've already said that you're a fan of the genre, and, with a project like this, acting parallel to Hannah Gross, who's got her own pedigree of projects already with it, what made you want to come on to the aspect of Deadwax?
Well, like I said, my love of horror and music. When I read the script, I thought it was a feature film, because it read that way.
Yeah.
Even with the bottle episode, I was like, that's bold. I like it. But it just read like a feature. I was attracted to also the character, like having to portray somebody that was suffering throughout and going crazy, and having to maintain that, but also have his arc within it. I thought was a really interesting challenge, and also getting to work with Hannah, who I really loved her work on Mindhunters. So and it was an attractive project to join on to.
Does it make you kind of shake your head really how small the community is and stuff, and how people come together on all these different projects?
It is a small world, and it is a small community. I'm actually learning that too, just kind of talking to these guys and be like,
Jim mentioned. We learned about Evan through casting, but as soon as we saw Evan, we realized he was in Jim Mickles' show, Hap and Leonard. And Jim's a good pal. So
which we learned in the audition. I was like, I know Jim. Like, oh, hey. So it became just us chit-chatting at the audition.
Yeah, it's funny. Last night with Overlord, Wyatt, I can't remember Wyatt's last name, but Wyatt, who is one of the lead actors in it.
Russell, yeah.
Right, Russell, thank you. 2 of his films also, Cold in July, as well as We Are. And on the red carpet, we ended up spending the entire 5 minutes talking about Jim Mickle. So today, it really is a small world, and how we're connected. And 7 degrees of Jim Mickle today. Or this weekend, I should say the least.
That's the theme of today.
Yeah, exactly right. I should say 7 degrees of glass eye. There, Larry. It's this is a story where you're dealing with a lot of things. In fact, I'm going to read them because there was certain things that point out the entire way. Ringu comes to mind with the aspect of the cursed item, the ninth gate, which I absolutely love, cigarette burns, the aspect of altered states, among others. So that's some of the influences I felt was drawn from it.
That was my pitch. Literally, you just.
Well, you know what? I'm glad. It's sync. It's like that. It's the audio waves. It's okay. So, Graham, for you, what made this? Because we've always known that you've been, of course, the radio drama and your sound work and stuff, and obviously vinyl in films. What made this a project, and what made you go down this path?
Well, I've always been obsessed with sound. For those who don't know my work, and I like sound because it's the hidden part of the medium of filmmaking. People know the visual, people know music, people know acting, they know costume design, they know all sorts of things, but sound design is a black art inside of that. You can make people perceive reality different in the way that you EQ a scene.
Right.
You can thin out people's voices and suddenly they get very anxious and afraid, but they have no idea it's happening. Yeah. And it's a very subtle, important thing to shape the reality of the viewer. And I've always been fascinated by that and the idea that you can tell a story about that somehow. And I think in the last couple of years, just having been a vinyl collector my whole life, I realized it would be a good time to pitch something like this because of the vinyl resurgence and the vinyl boom.
Right.
And just being a huge fan of forbidden media stories. And Chambers Tape, for example, is a hidden media story. And yeah, so Ringu and The Ninth Gate was a big one. I wanted to do a neo-noir like The Ninth Gate. I don't want to say too much about where Deadwax goes.
Right, exactly.
For those who don't see it, but these things are jumping off points. The show itself goes in different directions and will continue to go in different directions.
Good.
If we get to do it further. Almost more in some sci-fi territory. But I wanted to take all those things and weave it into something that was my own. And I know there are other sort of vinyl stories out there, but this this was my own specific perspective on it, based on my own experiences in the music world and the film world and the video game world too, because I
with Until Dawn.
Yeah, and that all kind of influences my approach to this kind of storytelling.
Peter, to say that with Glass Eye, it's eclectic is an understatement. Everything that you've been involved with that organization, it's not a surprise that you come on board for Deadwax. Can you talk about what intrigued you about this project and what intrigues you about Graham?
Well, I mean,
this is where you're honest about
because it's Graham, there wasn't really much of a decision making for me. It was like, it's just like, it's easy. It's just, I mean, Graham had told me he had been brewing this for some time with Shudder, and I had relocated to Los Angeles, and I said, yeah, I'd love to take this on, this challenge of how we tell this story within our means. But, Graham and I's, working relations started, well over a decade ago. We said 20 years ago.
We met through Ty in like 2000, I think.
Wow.
Yeah, and then we did I Can See You, and then
Right.
and then of course Graham's always working with me in his capacity as a sound designer, and what makes him so great as a sound designer because he is a storyteller, filmmaker, and takes that extra kind of like level, like Ty will describe, from going from the distance from 90 to the 110% is like the details in finding the small kind of like trope or the key that unlocks the world of the of the project, and it's Graham and I work close. I end up supervising a lot of the projects that we work on, and so we just have such a close working relationship, and so it was so great to be in LA where Graham had relocated to, and then work on this together. I just had such a blast on it, and we just it's been nonstop on this. Yeah,
that's an interesting aspect because the city really does play a huge role in it. It's that campus, the neo-noir, so he's going to play a role. So, Evan, when you look at a film like this, or a series like this, where you have so many different elements coming into play, you have the city, you have the sound, you have the mystique of the different characters, when you first talked to Graham about the project, what's your thoughts on the character that you play? What did you bring to it that wasn't on the page?
Oh, that's interesting. I don't know. I mean, I think what I tried to do is just service the story. I mean, it was written so well, honestly, like that I really just wanted to honor what was written. You know what I mean? Anything that I brought to it was maybe subconscious, as far as like I was really just trying to. I did kind of collaborate with Graham as far as like his backstory and sort of like sort of what made Len Perry, Len Perry. But honestly, it was really just like I have this responsibility to tell this character's story, and I don't want to mess that up.
Yeah.
So I was really just taking what was on the page and just and trying to honor it.
And you have a music background too. That was one of the things that we tried to do, is bring in a lot of people who had music backgrounds.
It makes sense.
Yeah,
It makes sense with it.
I mean, I also love graphic novels and stuff, and I thought this kind of plays.
It has
into
a feel like
graphic
it,
novel.
Yeah, it really does.
And it's Los Angeles, but there's like sort of like it's sort of like a mirror image of Los Angeles in a way, because we're seeing it through the lens of noir and stuff. So it's like sort of like the underbelly of Los Angeles, in a sense. That's kind of what I got from it.
Well, you know what? You deal with it, and to a certain extent, it kind of does have an Alice in Wonderland feel, especially once you're exposed. I guess exposed might be the right word. It might not. But when you start to go through after being affected by the records, I think that's not too much of a spoiler. No, what we see on screen is almost feels like you're in another dimension. That's why I bring up Altered States, because it really feels like you're going to a different place. When Graham talks to you about the aspect of what Len's going to go through, and the thing of almost, it's just very painful, very sensory to watch. What is his notes to you as an actor to deal with that, with the performance of dealing with that? Because you're not seeing the visual effects till you're in post. Exactly. So you've got to bring it to life. What is that like?
Yeah, so that's funny that you mentioned that, because before a lot of scenes that we shot, I would go up to Graham and say, okay, so like what exactly so and so we would talk a lot before shooting, and each scene, like on set and stuff, and he would say, okay, so and he would, because there's a lot of abstract quality to this project, and so you really need to get inside Graham's head, and so I'm
sorry.
Yeah, exactly.
No, but it's like he's talking in abstract terms, and so it's sort of like it wasn't something you could explicitly say in clear words sometimes, and so that's where like there was a leap as far as like that's where there was a trust that he had in me. I'm hoping he did.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. So he'd say, yeah, you're there's like this. I don't want to give away spoilers, but he would give me an abstract thing that Len is feeling, and then I would kind of just like take that step and hope I'm getting there, and then but then seeing the final product and seeing what he did to it, I was like, yes, I fully understand the vision.
One of the things beyond the fact of how abstract it is it's also educational, because you make it a point throughout each part of it to go ahead and break it down and explain. That's why part 4 is so good, because part 4 also, maybe in a little bit of an egotistical way with that radio jock, and we'll leave it at that, you really feel that you're learning about an art form, Was that something crucial to you in the writing, that it also had a little bit of an education for not only the generation coming up, but also the aspect of those? Because there's a very funny scene where they're sitting in that DJ booth, and he goes, do you have a record player? No, I don't. And he just, it's like the mood just deflates right there. And there's a lot of people who collect vinyl because it's cool to collect it, not because they care about it. So talk about the education on so many levels.
Well, I'll say 3 things. First, the person who says that, John Worster, we were very lucky to have as part of the best show on, what was the best show on WFMU with Sharpling and Worster. Now it's just the best show. He's the drummer of Superchunk and Mountain Goats and a lot of bands. Great guy and awesome to work with. Just a comedy hero of mine. Cast him because I knew how he would say that line, and he said it perfectly. It's just one of my favorite performers. But then, the second thing is that I knew that vinyl collecting seems like a niche, although there are lots of people who do it and lots of people love music. So I didn't want people to ever feel like they were out of their league. I wanted people to just be able to come to the story and catch up naturally. It's not that obscure. It's not that like vinyl collecting sometimes has like a weird elitist feel to it, but it shouldn't. And in a sense that the radio DJ in episode 4, played by Chester Rushing, is awesome. The idea was to show how it can kind of be both. There's a snobbery to it, but there's really nothing that needs to be snobbish about it. It's all it's there for us all to enjoy. And the third thing is that I made a film years ago called I Can See You, which is very abstract, very strange, and very different. And one of the big things I learned from that was that I always worried that I was saying too much, and it helped me figure out better ways to bring people to the table and let them feel comfortable and because I want to bring people to a place that they haven't been before on screen. That's my goal as a filmmaker. I want to show people something they haven't seen. As a storyteller, exactly. Yeah, whether it's the Chambers tape or whatever. I just want to get that new thing for people. I want to get people's blood flowing in their head, and they're excited because they're having a sense they haven't had. And I think in the past I've just rushed headlong into that. But I'm realizing now you gotta bring people in a little more easily, and you gotta get them there closer. It took 10 years, but but yeah, and having the episodic format was a perfect way to do that, because it's bite-sized chunks, because you never feel lost, because you're like, well, it's only 10 more minutes, and then we'll have something new. So if you're ever feeling a little like you're behind, it's like little short stories. And I think that was a good way to warm people up to the kind of stranger things that happen later on.
And it's a perfect time for that, and not to bump off Stranger Things and stuff like that, but the aspect of horror that is multidimensional is really kind of cycled around, which is something that's so crucial and so important within the genre, to find out the world around us and get out of our comfort zone, which, obviously with Deadwax we do. But Peter, to you, so as a producer, did you cringe at all the incredible equipment that was part of this, and how expensive probably it was and stuff? And was this all Graham stuff that you just loaned it to you and stuff like that? Talk about the aspect of bringing the production design and bringing an authentic aspect to it, because some of these hi-fi record players, however you want to describe it, because there's so many different models, I mean, they look amazing. They look like pieces of art. Talk about that.
Oh, absolutely. When we approached this, and we sort of knew, we needed to get hi-fi audio equipment. And it was just something that, we talked to our production designer, Benjamin Ralston, and he had a lot of experience with reaching out to product placement. And we just want to sell that authenticity, because it's very clear to anyone who does collect, that I think opening record player is.
And I just wanted to interject one second.
Yeah, good.
We call it product placement, but it's not product placement. We didn't get paid for anything. We reached out to places and asked them for things because we wanted them. it was we got nothing from it. So there's nothing being just to make it clear, there's no advertisements.
You
in
got
it.
beautiful visual joy looking at it.
But I'll say that but it is stuff that is cleared, like, you know, logos are there, needles, you know what I mean? All that detail is really important. But yeah, I think it's like, the fans really responded to the nature of the show, and were, you know, happy to kind of help. And then we just kind of like pushed the production value as much as we could, and just, you know, just kind of be realistic about our schedule, just to get everything shot. But I think, you know, really excited about those challenges with every project I'm working with. You know, I think, and especially with Graham, because we've worked together. There's just a real honesty about what we can and can't do, and bringing it together, and then we make choices about what's important. And you know, if I've learned one thing from working with Larry at Glasseye for all these years, I mean, he's always been about supporting the artist, you know, and the artistry of it. And so it's just get out of the way, and that's the way I've been from the, you know, working with Ty and Jim and all these guys. It was just, what do you guys need to get there? And you know, unless, you know, like, I think one of the things we said about the script in the very beginning was like, well, we only have this many days, you know, do you want to kind of thing? No? Okay, we'll figure that out.
Exactly. And we adjust our shot lists, and we adjust to the way we're going to shoot, and then we say, okay, what's important? We want to have, you know, half a day for the dialogue scene between Ed and Perry outside Perry's house. So we have half a day for that, and we may only have, you know, 2 hours for a whole other scene, but we may only need 2 hours for a whole other scene. So Peter was, you know, amazing to work with in this regard, because we've worked together for a long time, and we've done a lot of low budget stuff, and we figured out ways to strategically use the resources we had to make the most out of it.
I think this is a good way to close it up, because this is for everyone here. Talk about Hannah. Talk about what she brings to the project. And, you know, this is a character that she's embodying that is dealing with several different conflicts throughout. It almost, I want to refer it almost to like a Jessica Jones, because I think what Marvel does with that show and that character is amazing on all the conflicts that she has. But, you know, she's dealing with the aspect like in the Ninth Gate and Cigarette Burns, where she's acquiring things, maybe not the most appropriate way, but she's acquiring things. And then she's dealing with relationships, then she's dealing with the past, and that is a great scene when she comes to the house. I will say that. It's wonderful. But what does she bring that brings the character to life? I'll go to you first, Graham.
Well, I don't want to say too much about her performance before people see it, but I will say this. I wanted that character to be a little bit of a cipher, a little bit closed off, like a true classic noir detective, a little ahead of the audience, a little black boxed, so that people are very open and emotional around her, but she is... Well, my reference to her was Mike Hammer in Kiss Me Deadly. It's my favorite movies of all time. So that's to me, that's who she was playing.
So great.
Yeah, and she learned to smile just like he smiles in that movie. Just smiles with her teeth, and it's just, and actually in that scene outside of Perry's house, which people see, it ends with a shot of her smiling, which is just pure Mike Hammer. Wow. But she's I describe her as a perfect combination of both Lemmy Caution and Anna Karina from Alphaville. She's as beautiful as Anna Karina and as hard-edged as Lemmy Caution, and that was exactly what I wanted from her. And she nailed it.
Evan.
Yeah, I can echo what Graham says. I like how she was this like hard-boiled detective sort of a character, beautiful, and her performance is so subtle. And honestly, when I was working with her, I didn't really think I had to do a lot. I was just kind of just like living in the moments with her, and you know, she's really great, and we got to joke around between takes and stuff. Like, so she was able to turn it off and on really gracefully, and yeah, no, I was super impressed. And then going back, and while we were working on together, I was like, this is a really great performance, like, what, you know. Yeah. And then going back and watching the whole thing, I'm like, wow, it's even better than I thought it was in person. So
I got to say real quick, Peter, before you jump on, I'm ready to see it again tonight. So, ready to see it. And at midnight is going to be amazing, because you're dealing, you know, people have had a little bit to drink, people are relaxed, and it's really going to be a hell of a trip. Talk about Hannah.
Well, I mean, we were just so I think kismet to get her. I mean, she really just stood out in Mindhunters. We were casting, and then, you know, and then that's really what it is. It's like, you know, when we're setting up to do the show, and we were like, you know, who's this character, and all these conversations I had with Graham about who Edda is and what we were looking for. You know, when reaching out to Hannah and mutual friends, it just made it work. And she was just such a pro, and came in and just trusted us, you know. And that was, I think, the biggest thing is like, because you got to put trust in one another, right. and you know, we put trust in her, and yeah, It's just I can't wait for her to experience Deadwax. Yeah.
Yes.
Now, when will Deadwax officially hit Shudder?
I think officially maybe this fall. I think is sort of
That we can officially say yet, but soon.
Okay, so fall.
Very soon.
Yeah. So just pay attention to Shudder.com.
Yeah, exactly.
Plain and simple. Plain and simple. You know.
Get your subscriptions ready.
Yes.
There you go.
I would be remiss real quick before they pop their head in. Are we going to see another tale from you?
I'm not sure if Larry and Glenn do another season. And they ask me, I'll definitely be there with bells on.
It's fantastic. Evan, what about you? What do you got coming up?
About to do a film in New Orleans.
Lucky bastard.
Yeah, I love New Orleans, and that's the very next thing I'm doing.
And Peter, what are you producing?
There's a bunch of projects in development, but nothing I'm going to announce just yet. Yeah.
Congratulations on Most Beautiful Island.
Oh, thank you. Yeah.
It's excellent. Excellent. Gentlemen, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Check out Deadwax on Shudder, and we appreciate the time from Fantastic Fest. Horror Happens.